Welcome back to these series of lectures on Western Civ, the second half. We're going to talk about the Great War today, or World War I. Of course, the contemporaries called it the Great War because there had not been a World War II. That won't occur until the 30s and 40s. So we want to start here with context and then significance. And then what I'm going to do is take you through the long-term causes of the war. And then we'll look at the short-term or immediate causes of the war. We'll briefly characterize the fighting that takes place here, especially on the Western Front. And then, of course, we'll have to talk about the Russian Revolution, about the United States' entry into the war in 1917. And then we'll have to discuss the Versailles Treaty, the peace settlement, and how Versailles sort of redraws the map of Europe. So there's a lot to do here, and we'll break this up into separate lectures. So let's talk about context first. I'm going to give you a couple. The first context is historians refer to that long period between the end of the Napoleonic Wars, 1815, to the beginning of the Great War, 1914. They refer to that as the long 19th century. What they mean by this is that we have this extended period of time where there is no general war in Europe. There are small local wars. I'm thinking especially with Bismarck and the creation of the German Empire. But there's no general conflagration in Europe. World War I ends that long 19th century of peace. A second context is more technical. When we think of World War I, you have to refer back to those weapon systems that were created to fight this war. Weapon systems, some of which had preceded the war, and most of them have, of course, gone on and become perfected in the 20th century. Just as an example, the tank. The tank is created here. Originally as an armored escort for infantry across no man's land. Infantry would huddle behind a tank and follow it, trying to keep from getting killed in this so-called no man's land where everything is at risk. Later, the tank will have a cannon placed on it, and it will become an offensive weapon. But here, initially, it is a defensive weapon, an escort for infantry. Of course, the airplane is going to be used here in World War I. The Wright brothers, I don't even remember when the airplane was invented or first flown. I think it was 1904. It's early 20th century. And here we are in 1914. The airplane's been in existence for, what, a decade? And we're already using it in battle. We have observation balloons. We have machine guns. And, of course, machine guns are going to dominate this war. One man with a machine gun and plenty of ammunition and some protection can hold off hundreds, if not thousands, of approaching enemy troops. We have concertina wire. You've seen this in depictions of no man's land, this circular razor wire strewn about the battlefield to impede the advancement of the infantry. We have submarines attacking enemy shipping. Indeed, German unlimited submarine warfare will bring the United States into this war. We have long-range artillery, huge artillery that can fire a shot for many, many miles and do it quite accurately. We have gas. Poisonous gas is going to be used in this war. Hitler himself will be wounded in a gas attack. So we have all these weapon systems. Again, some of them preceded the war. All of them have been developed after the Great War and continue to be used. So there is this technological context to the war. I want to say something now that's important regarding all these new weapon systems. So let's just move to our significances. First significance. The generals in the First World War, their tactics never caught up to the technology. The generals continued to behave as if these were the Napoleonic Wars of 100 years before. They continued to feed their men into these ghastly, meat grinding battles. This is going to result in astronomical casualties. We're going to have casualties here in the Great War, unlike anything ever seen in human history. So the general's tactics never caught up with the technology. And we'll look a little closer at this, especially the Western Front, in a later lecture. Other significances, the great empires of Europe are destroyed as a result of this war. The German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and finally the Russian Empire. These are all disbanded. And of course, it's important to note that we're going to create new, small, weak countries where these empires had once existed. And I want you to keep this in mind. This is important. These new, small, weak countries are the seeds of the Second World War. Other significances, the United States is going to emerge as a world power as a result of this war. Lenin is going to take Russia out of the war and create the Soviet Union, the first communist country. So these are all big significances. In fact, if you can understand the Great War, understand especially its settlement, then the rest of the 20th century will begin to make sense. Without the Great War, there's no Hitler. Without Hitler, there's no Holocaust. Without Hitler, there's no Second World War in Europe. Without the Great War, you don't have Lenin and the Soviet Union. Without the Soviet Union, you don't have the Cold War. So if you can understand the Great War, the rest of the 20th century will start to fall into place. So let's start talking about long-term causes. And there's a number of them, so I'm going to mention each one and then briefly give you some sense of why it's significant. Let's start with the unification of Germany. And you can look at the map here that we provide for you, and you can see that Germany prior to 1870 was just a collection of little principalities, little independent sovereign states. After 1870, however, Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor, will take all these independent German kingdoms and principalities and states and will cobble them together into a German empire. So suddenly, in the heart of Europe, you have a very new, powerful German state. This makes the rest of Europe nervous. Is this new Germany going to be aggressive? Is it going to be friendly to its neighbors? What does it want? What are its ambitions? So the center of gravity of Europe sort of shifts from London and Paris eastward to Berlin with the creation of Germany. And we'll see as we go through these long and short-term causes that it is Germany that seems to be the axis around which all of Europe revolves. A second long-term cause, militarism. East of the Rhine, you'll notice that national leaders are dressed in military uniforms. You see military parades. You see the military institutions exalted. You see this increasing tendency to believe that the military has answers to political problems. So there's an increasing militarism in Europe and other places for that matter. Third, nationalism. Nationalism is a sort of fervent, think of patriotism run amok. There's a sense here of people beginning to identify with their nation. People had traditionally identified with their village, with their province, with their region. Now, people think of themselves as Frenchmen, as Germans, as Italians. There's a sense of an imagined community out there of which we belong. We have something in common with other Germans, other Frenchmen, other Italians, other Russians. Even though we don't know them and will never meet them, there is a sense that we have something that binds us together. So nationalism is going to allow these governments by 1914 to access the entire wealth and strength of the country, these governments are going to have access to a national unit, not just when you think of the old feudal system where the king depended upon the nobles to bring their knights to fight the battles. That's just a tiny, tiny percentage of the population. Here, we're going to involve the entire nation, not only in fighting, but in producing the war material to fight with. A good example of nationalism is this photograph you can see here of Hitler, a young Hitler in his 20s. He's part of this big crowd. You see, I believe it's in Munich, and you can see the people are very excited. The announcement has just been made that Germany has declared war on Russia. And you can see the crowd is ecstatic over this development. And you see a young Hitler here taking off his hat and smiling. It's one of the few pictures you see of Hitler smiling. He's excited along with the rest. Nationalism, this sense that you now identify with your nation and you are part of a larger imagined community of which you have something at stake. Another long-term cause is pan-Slavism with a hyphen. The Slavic language, of course, is dominant in Eastern Europe. Russia is the largest Slavic-speaking country. I want you to take a look at our map here, and you'll see those countries that are Slavic-speaking in green. And I want you to notice a little Serbia, just south of Austria-Hungary. Serbia is a Slavic-speaking country as well. Pan-Slavism is a Russian idea. What it says, essentially, is that Russia, as the greatest of the Slavic-speaking peoples, will protect her little Slavic brothers if they get into trouble. And of course, that's exactly what's going to happen. Serbia is going to provoke war with Austria-Hungary in 1914, and Russia is going to come to Serbia's aid. This will lead to a catastrophic series of events that we'll get into. I'm going to do one more long-term cause, then we'll take a break and pick this up later. And that is imperialism. We discussed imperialism earlier, so I just want to make a note here that imperialism tends to put the great powers in awkward positions sometimes. Imagine a French and British units colliding somewhere in Africa, and shots are exchanged. Men are killed. Could a small local event in Africa, could that rebound back to Europe and put the great powers at each other's throats? Imperialism creates awkward situations. It creates competition, bitterness, suspicion among the great powers. It sort of poisons the atmosphere and is one of the long-term causes of the Great War. Let's stop there for the time being. We'll resume this and talk about some other long-term causes in our next lecture. Thank you.